Hello, I'm Robert, a fact checker and science blogger and helping people who are scared of many things. And this time I'm helping again another video about this conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, which would be rather a splendid sight in a small telescope. And I'm saying this to help people who are getting very scared because of all the ridiculous, crazy things that are being said about it by false prophets and people who don't have a clue about astronomy. So this is what you'd see in a small telescope. Now, I just want to make it quite absolutely clear that you realise that these are just star-like objects. Let's see. So I'll bring this up, mute the sound. Just a minute. So this is what you would see with your naked eye. It just looks like a little star, right? This is a camera with a very powerful zoom. And as we come in, this is Jupiter, and then you can see its moons there. And that's when you zoom in. But it's very, very far away. It just looks like a star to our eyes. You can't see that with naked eye. If you look at it with binoculars, you'll see that there's a bright spot in the faint ones. You won't even see the size of the centre one, really, with binoculars. With a small telescope, you see something more like that. And then this next one, in a minute, we're going to get Saturn. Here comes Saturn coming. Let's click forward to Saturn. Same thing. No, Saturn's a little bit further. That's still Jupiter, I think. That's still Jupiter. We're going to come to Saturn soon. Let's find it. There we are. So there's Saturn, another. It's a little bit earlier. I don't think it starts fully zoomed out with Saturn. They're a very, very faint star, you see? And then it seems to have jumped. There's Saturn. But you could see just a very faint star. Not a bright star, but a very small star. And then as you zoom in, you get more and more definition into it. And then eventually you realise that that's what it is. Now, you don't see so much detail with Saturn because it is so very far away. So that's much further away than Jupiter. And so it's only a bit, it is smaller than Jupiter as well, but it mainly looks smaller because it's further away. So that's Saturn and that's Jupiter. So this is what you would see if you zoom in with a really good camera like that one. That was the P1000, the Nikon P1000. It's got a 3000 times zoom. So with a really good camera like that, you'd see it almost like that in the camera, or a decent small telescope. And you'd be able to make out the ring, and you may make out Titan or something. So that's the, and then I just want to show this. Saturn is a really beautiful planet, and this is what you see with the Hubble Space Telescope, but you can't expect anything like this with a normal telescope. So Hubble Space Telescope can see quite a lot of detail there. It's a gas giant. This is gas. It's not a solid surface. And then the ring is lots and lots of tiny, tiny particles of ice that make up the ring. So they're in the Laplace plane between the equatorial and the ecliptic plane. So that's what's going to happen, and it's just, so then if I have a look at find this one, let's just find it in a minute. The Sky and Telescope one has quite a good, there we are, I'll bring that up. If you want to see this conjunction, then I strongly recommend, sadly I don't think I'm going to be able to see it from where I live, because it'd be too far down in the south, in the west. I don't have a clear horizon in that direction. I have to go up on the hills to have a chance of seeing it, and it would be very close to the horizon. But now, is this the right one? Oh yes, here we are. That gives a good idea of what you'll actually see. So you can see on each. So I recommend, if you want to actually spot this conjunction, then go out anytime and try and spot it. It'll be close to the horizon in the west, and as the date approaches, it'll disappear more and more towards the setting sun in the evening. And so try and find it earlier on. Like if you go and look, like where we are now, we're already into December, so they're going to be quite close to each other, and it'd be quite hard to spot because it's not very far away from the setting sun. You only have a small amount of time to actually see it. If you leave it till long after sunset, then it'll have gone below the horizon, and then you also need to find a place with a clear western horizon. So I suggest you get something like Sky Safari, which you could get installed. You have to pay a little bit for it, but it's well worth it. And then you point at that with your mobile phone, and you show the video of your mobile phone, like you're taking a video, but it overlays on that. That's the best way to use it. And it will show you on the actual video of the screen where the planets are on that video. And so then you can bring it up, and you'll see that it's behind a house or it's behind a hill or something. So then you can go around, and so I would try that a few days before the actual conjunction itself, and get an idea of where it is and what time of day you need to be at what particular place. Probably some place that's quite high up without any distant buildings and hills in that direction would likely be a good way to see it. And so as it gets closer to the date, then you get a better view from the from equatorial regions, because this is then more vertical, whereas if you're where I am in Scotland, it's way down here somewhere at an angle. So I'll have very little chance of seeing it, because I'm in Scotland, northern Scotland, and Isle of Mull. So for me it'll be like that. It'll be really quite hard to spot. So whereas if you're in somewhere near the equator, then it'll be just like that. So I think so anyway, if I got that right. But anyway, so I suggest if you want to see it, then download something like Sky Safari onto your mobile phone, and then go out beforehand, several days beforehand, and see if you can spot it, because it's not going to be that easy to see. Now, so this is totally harmless. The planets are very far apart from each other, as you can see here. So I did that, I showed you this. They're more than 700 million kilometers apart. That's a very, very vast distance. The moon is only 300,000 kilometers away, and it's 20,000 kilometers around the Earth's circumference. Let's quickly bring up. I think it's Earth's circumference. Then 40,000, that's right, 40,000. And it seems like a very round number. The reason is because the kilometre was originally defined as a 40,000th of the Earth's equatorial circumference. So it's not actually a coincidence, it's 40,000 kilometres. And then it got changed, the definition, and that's why it's not exactly 40,000. So compared with that, 773 million kilometres, I mean, you'd be spending years in a 747 to travel that far, and it gives you an idea of how far away it is. It has absolutely no measurable gravitational effect. The amount of gravity of a distant object in the sky varies according to its visual size in the sky. So for something to have and its density, for something to have the same amount of gravitational pull as the moon, then it would have to be as big as the moon in the sky, and the same density. If it was less dense than the moon, it has to be even bigger. If it's more dense, it can be a bit closer. And then it falls off very, very fast. It's not just linear. It falls off very, very fast. And by the time you get Jupiter and Saturn, you've got a tiny fraction of a millimetre for every 10 metres of tides of the moon. It's just not measurable. So no, there's no gravity, and that's the only way they can affect us. They can't affect us by any electrical means or magnetic means or anything like that. And they do have electrical fields, but they don't have any noticeable effect out here. and the only real effect is gravitation, but that's so minute you can't measure that either. So these planets can't do anything to us. Absolutely, totally harmless. On Saturn zoom. So then you get people also they worry about, and they say, well, there's the story running that this was the time when Jesus was born. This was the star before the birth of Jesus. And then you've got these false prophets saying, because it was before Jesus, because Jesus was born and the wise men followed the star to see him, then Jesus is about to return. There's nothing in the Bible about there being a star to connect it with Jesus returning. So it's just people making stuff up. And if you actually look, there was a conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter at the time of Jesus, but it wasn't anything like this. So first of all, this is not the closest it gets. The very closest, then you can actually get Saturn goes behind Jupiter. And this is way before Jesus, very rare thing that happens. And that is 6,856 BC, and that is 7,541 AD in the future, and 8,674. So our descendants in the very far future, 5,500 years from now, then that's what they'll see. So you can leave a memo to your great many times grandchildren to go and have a look at the sky and see this on June the 7,541 at 1745 UT. Now, astronomers can predict these things very accurately for centuries, in fact thousands of years in advance. The reason is because we know very well how the planets move. But this is not prophecy. They don't sort of look and say, they don't ask God, and they don't look for divine revelation. They don't have visions. People don't go to sleep and say, I will have a dream, and then whatever I dream will tell me what's going to happen in the year 7,541. They make these predictions in the same way that if you throw a ball, then you know which way it's going to go, and you get a rough idea of how long it will take for someone else to catch it. If you have a ball in your hand and let it go, you know it's going to fall, and you get a very rough idea how long it will take to fall. And if you drop it from the top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, then you can measure and see how long it takes to fall to the ground, and then you can try it again, and every time it will take the same amount of time. It doesn't sometimes sort of hang around in there and say hi before it drops, and it doesn't go floating up. And then if you have a helium balloon, you let it go, it goes up. Now, that is not prophecy. That is just knowing how the world works. You've discovered, and in the same way that we know that winter follows summer. You don't prophesy winter. When you go and gather, get in your provision, you pick your apples or whatever in the autumn. It's not because you're prophesying that you're going to have a winter. It's because you know from the pattern and the way the world works. So all this is something we can do. We can see the future, but we don't do it by prophecy. And prophecy just never works. These false prophets, they couldn't even, they have no way of knowing. They wouldn't be able to calculate stuff. They wouldn't be able to prophesy this. Go and don't show them this. Just say, prophesy for me when Jupiter and Saturn will occlude themselves in the sky. Which year will it be? And they won't be able to do anything. They can't see that. The only way they can know about this is by asking the astronomers, or downloading an astronomy package, and then they'll be able to find out from the program, and they can run it forward and backwards. They can't prophesy. They can't see it, and they can't ask God. God doesn't answer trivial questions like this. It doesn't seem that he does. Listen, nobody has made any progress in astronomy by asking God, how many moons does Saturn have, or what shape is Pluto? What happens? How thick is the atmosphere of Pluto and things like that? It just doesn't work. At least not in our time. So, but then these close conjunctions and the one we have here, then if you look at this is just, these were 7 arc minutes apart. That's a very, very small, that's far, if you take the size of the moon, then that is about 30 arc minutes apart. So this is, about a fifth of the distance of the width of the moon. That gives you an idea of how close they are to each other. Very, very close together in the sky. This, of course, is actually behind each other. And just to remind you again, in this picture, Saturn is nowhere near Jupiter. If you were on Saturn, you would see, just like I showed in the picture, that Saturn looked like a tiny star until you zoomed in. In the same day, if you were sitting on Saturn, even in the year 7541, you would see Jupiter as a distant star. If you were sitting on Jupiter, you would see Saturn as a distant star. It's only because we are zooming in on both of them from Earth that they seem to be big planets close to each other. They're actually very far, far away from each other. They're not even, you wouldn't even see this. If you were on Jupiter, you wouldn't see Saturn like that, not with naked eye. You would see Saturn just like another star. If you're on Saturn with naked eye, Jupiter would just look like another star, and you wouldn't see the moons. That's just with naked eye. So, and so then, but then you get people saying, this. They say, well, something is going to happen because this happened just before Jesus was born. Well, 7 BC, nothing like this happened. They were actually a degree apart. They were over twice the width of the moon apart. On December 4, 7 BC. And on September 29, they were nearly 3 degrees apart. So they're much further apart than they will be this time. And it could actually have been a triple thing. Maybe it was actually a triple thing of Saturn, Jupiter and Mars. The planets are very much exaggerated in that image. They would just be little star-like things again. So again, that's another hypothesis, but there are loads of hypotheses as to what the wise men actually saw, and nobody actually knows. I use, this is just because I have a private window here, so as not to get notifications in Quora. So nobody knows what the Bethlehem star was, but it is about the birth of Jesus. It's not about the second coming. It has nothing to do with the second coming. So if you want to make a Christian message about it, then you can think, well, notionally, this is rather a nice coincidence. This can be part of the Advent ceremony, part of the Advent waiting for Christmas Day, where you celebrate the birth of Jesus. Now, another thing that you may not realize. Oh yes, we could talk about the Age of Aquarius, but first of all, I'm just going to talk about no connection with Jesus' birth. So it's just a coincidence that it's the winter solstice this year, and that would happen every 7,300 years or so. And it's not that much of a coincidence, only one in the chance in 365. And then if you think there are many other days it could have been coincidental with, that would have been quite striking, and then the many other conjunctions that could have been coincidental with any day you choose. Then, so it's not so extraordinary that you have a 1 in 365 chance from time to time. You expect it. This particular one, for this particular date, then that's only happened very rarely, but for this to happen for some conjunction with some interesting date to be together, then that's very common. And so, and another thing to say is that we have no idea when Jesus was born. We have an idea of when he died, because that was the Passover. We have no idea when he was born. There's no date, there's no time in the Bible. And they didn't actually celebrate the birth of Jesus until the 4th century. And they don't know what date it was, and they don't know what time of the year. And they say here, this history.com, they're saying that there's some evidence it might have happened in the spring, because why would shepherds be herding in the middle of winter? I don't know how good that is, because after all, it's much warmer there than in. So I'm not terribly confused by that, impressed by that. But anyway, for whatever reason, Pope Julius I, he chose December 25, and he probably chose that because it was in order to coincide with the Saturnalia festival. So the Romans had a festival at that time. And so, just as the Romans had a festival at that time, then the Christians would think, well, we want to celebrate, so let's celebrate at the same time as everyone else, but we'll celebrate Jesus' birth, instead of celebrating whatever they were celebrating with the Roman gods and all that. So that's quite a common thing. And our modern Christmas Day, with Santa Claus and the Christmas tree and all the things we do, then that is a lot of that comes from pagan ceremonies for the winter solstice. And although it's the 21st is winter solstice, we're celebrating the winter solstice on the 25th, and that's basically what we're doing. And we're calling it Jesus' birth. And then if you're in Ethiopia or in Eastern Orthodox, then you celebrate on the 6th of January. But none of this is the actual date that Jesus was born, because nobody knows. Perhaps it was sometime in the spring, perhaps it was, who knows? It's very hard to know. And then you get people talking about the Age of Aquarius. Well, nobody knows when the Age of Aquarius starts. So the Age of Aquarius, it sounds very dramatic, but this just means that if you look at it's about to do with the precession of the equinoxes. You look at the spring equinox, and you look, where's the sun in the sky during the spring equinox when you have equal day and night? And then it's either in Pisces or it's in Aquarius, and it depends how you divide the constellations up. So if you want to divide the constellations up according to modern astronomy, then I think, let's just see. I'll just find out when it starts. By modern astronomy, it starts in 2597 AD, so we're not even in it yet. We're not in it yet, and we won't do it before another over 4,000, nearly 5,000 years. No, sorry, nearly 3,000 years. Was it year 2000? No, sorry, nearly 5,000. It's nearly 6,000 years. Sorry, I got something wrong an earlier one of those as well, because of course we're in the year 2000 at the moment. It's another 6,000 years. But the many other centuries, suggestions from 14,000 AD, 447, 35,097, 3,000, to 1447 to 3597, then 2597 by astronomical boundaries. It all depends how you divide up the stars, the constellations in the sky. And that's all it's about. So different ways, or you've got these patterns of stars, and this is the actual pattern of the of Aquarius. And you say, where are the boundaries of Aquarius? Now, Aquarius itself, Aquarius looks like a figure as seen from Earth, but it's in 3D. There isn't an actual Aquarius. It isn't a real thing. It's only a pattern of stars as seen from our direction. That's just the technical details about what they're showing. It goes on for quite a while. So here we go. So here's Aquarius, and then the colours should give you details about the kind of star. Right, so there's Aquarius as you see it from Earth, and now it's going to turn it around. These look very close together in the sky. They're actually very far apart, those two stars in Aquarius. That rather faint star, that very bright star. So now as it turns it around, look what happens as they turn it around. I'm just going to do it in a minute. Now they've shown distance. There we are, you see, they're very far apart. And so these stars, they're not actually connected to each other. They're not actually even together in the sky. They're kind of a pattern of stars. Quite a few of them are together, but some are way, way, way apart. And so they are back to where they are. So the Aquarius is not, it's just a pattern of stars as we see it from our perspective. And so whether the sun is in Aquarius or in Pisces as seen from Earth has absolutely no physical consequences for anything. And the reason that the Earth axis points in different ways is because of precession, influenced by the moon and by the sun, and our orbit slowly precesses, Now if I show this in the middle, but he's got it set spinning, and you can see how he's doing this kind of loopy thing. It's pointing in different directions. Then our axis does that as well. Our axis traces a little loop like that. Little circle. And so our axis points towards the pole star if that was pointing north. And it traces a huge circle in the sky every 26,000 years. So very, 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 very slowly. And that's the precession of the equinoxes. It takes 26,000 years to do that once. And it's not going to fall over, it's just in free space. It's slowly doing that thing, very, 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 very slowly. Round and round and round. And the pole star changes. And so, for instance, the Egyptians had a completely different pole star from the one we have now. Egyptian pole star, I can't remember what it's called. So, I agree. Thbuen, yes, Thbuen was the pole star. So this could, yeah, that'll be a good image to look at. Let's look at that image. So these are the stars. Here we are. That's quite a good page. So if you're looking at the pole star, which you use for navigation for true north, and this is how it changes, except all. And this is how it changes. So we are here, and that's Polaris, which is the pole star at the moment. 0 BC, around the time of Jesus, then the pole star wasn't. It was quite a bit different from where the pole star is. It was much more towards the Big Dipper, but actually shifted a little bit more that way. And then in 9000 BC it was in a completely different place. There was Vega at one point, which is quite a bright star. And so it goes round like that over a 26,000 year period. So it's all to do with that, the Age of Aquarius thing, and there's no actual date that it starts on. And so you get these people, this woo-woo stuff saying, you know, we're going to turn into new kinds of creatures of light or something on the 21st of December. This is just someone who has arbitrarily decided that the Age of Aquarius is that the sun is going to cross the boundary, and they've actually decided we're going to draw a line in the sky for the 21st of December. There's no reason to draw it there rather than anywhere else. And nothing's going to happen on that date. It just, it's just nothing. This is just an ordinary day like any other day. So hopefully that helps a bit. And so there's no connection with Jesus' birth. You could celebrate it as part of the celebration of Jesus' birth if you want. Just thinking about it as much like like Pope Julius I chose the 25th of December to celebrate Jesus' birth. But it's not got any actual connection that we know of, and we don't know what date Jesus was born. So now I just want to talk about the other false prophecies. I'm going to doing a slightly longer one here to reassure scared people. So this is the false prophet, and he's definitely, it's not I'm not being nasty to call him a false prophet. He just by definition is. That's his trade. He makes a business of being a false prophet, because he's a false prophet because he falsely says the world is going to end a dozen times a year or more, over and over and over again, and it doesn't end. And basically he's a Chicken Little, like a Paul Chicken Little Begley. Every time there's anything astronomical being predicted at all, he'll say this means the world's going to end. Eclipse, full moon, just a full moon, and you'll say, oh, this full moon means that the world's going to end. You have a full moon every month, and say any solar eclipse or lunar eclipse, or if someone discovers something new in the sky, a new distant planet or something, you'll say, oh, that means the world's going to end. He's just a Chicken Little. Just keeps saying, oh, an acorn has fallen on my head, the sky's going to end, the world's going to end. Acorn falling on his head is what happened to Chicken Little in the story. So that's why I've got the acorn on his head. So, it's like you're sitting on the tree and an acorn lands on his head, and he's the sort of chap who would go running up to that town, ringing the bells and telling the entire town that the sky is falling down. That's the sort of person he is. But he's actually, he's not teaching Christianity. He would be, if suppose that a Catholic priest was to say the things that he says, then the next day he'd be out of his job. It's totally not Christian. He is ignoring the central points in the Bible, for instance saying that you shouldn't do false prophecy. I'm just doing a false prophecy, you should be out of your job if you're any kind of a priest. And then he constantly says, buy gold. And there's nothing in the Bible about buying gold. So he usually spends 2 or 3 minutes, sometimes more, at the beginning of every video, nearly every video, saying buy gold. And it's always for the same non-notable gold trading company. He's always telling his people, buy gold from this particular country. I won't give the name of it, but I've got it in my mind, but I'm not going to say it, because I don't want to give them any airtime. But this is a very bad idea to buy gold, especially during a pandemic. Gold is a commodity. It's like telling people, buy cherries or something to say. Gold doesn't actually rot like cherries, but it would buy hummus, buy 1,000 tons of hummus, and it doesn't make sense unless you're a hummus trader. Other people don't have a clue about what you would do if you bought 1,000 tons of hummus. What would you do next? And so with gold, buy gold. And if you buy gold, you've got to obviously pay the trading, like the markup, to sell it to you. And if you're going to sell it to someone else, there'll be a markup again. So you will lose out of the trade if you buy gold and then sell it back again. You've got all the postage of posting it, and then you'll have an extra markup because you're buying a commodity from a trader. And then the price is very volatile. It's just a commodity, and it's very high during a pandemic because people think it's safe, so they buy lots of gold, and then when the pandemic is over, they want to sell it, and then there'll be a glut of gold, and the prices will go down, and then people will panic and they'll want to sell it more and more, and so the prices will plummet, and that will happen. So it's very bad advice to buy gold during a pandemic. And this is not a Christian message. There's nothing in the Bible about buying gold. And you have no protection. It's not like money in a bank account. You have no protection from the ombudsman because it's just a commodity. So he's giving people very bad advice there. And he is constantly promoting this gold, saying you've got to buy this gold. And why? When the world's about to end, why is he saying, if he thinks the world's going to end, why should he be selling gold, and why would other people buy gold? It's not his gold, but maybe they're pals of his, who knows? But why would he always promote the same non-notable company, and try to get his followers to buy gold? Doesn't make sense. So I get people saying to me, well, why are these people doing this? Well, you can get your mind all screwed up if you try to understand these false prophets. Because it's a bit like if someone tells you, oh, I'm Cleopatra, or I'm Julius Caesar. Someone comes into the room and says, I'm Julius Caesar. Then, what can you make of that? He's not Julius Caesar. Why is he saying he is? And most of us just can't make sense of that. So he's a bit like one of these people. It's really difficult to make sense of these people, and you can really mess your mind up and trying too hard especially if you're easily panicked and scared. So I think the best thing is just to say, oh, it's just the thing he does, but just he's a Chicken Little, and he's, I say probably say the world would end if a leaf fell on his head, and try to just think of him as being this harmless. None of his prophecies can ever harm you in any way. And then this just shows. Now I want to show. I forgot to add that Saturn occulted by the moon. That's rather nice. By the moon. That's a rather nice thing to show you. So now let's see if I can find a video of it. There we are. Amazing capture. That sounds like might be good. This I think is just a simulation. Oh, there we are. So this is quite a rare event. Yes, at Universe today they'd be quite good. So there we are. That's an actual photograph of Saturn and the moon. You see, and you see how tiny Saturn is compared to the moon in that picture. You see, this is a close-up of the moon, and that's Saturn. And so the moon has a lot of gravity. Remember, the amount of gravity depends on the size of the object, and in the sky, the visual size of it. So the moon is big enough to give us the tides. I mean the amount of the tides, and Saturn is absolutely tiny, and it's the fourth power or something. It's tiny, tiny, tiny. It's got a negligible gravitational effect. And this was one time when the very, very distant Saturn passed behind the moon. And here it is, a video of it. Let's do the video. That's it. That's the video, I think. Let's switch the sound off. There we are. Does it actually move behind the sun? Yes, we had to be in just the right place to see it. Oh, here we are. An actual. Well, that was a simulation, and this is the real thing. So this is a real video. You have to be in the right place on the Earth's surface to see it. And there it is. It gradually disappeared behind the moon. But it's nowhere near the moon. If you were on the moon, you wouldn't see Saturn, and if you were on Saturn, you wouldn't see the moon. It would just be like a distant star. What does it say? In broad daylight, so it should be difficult to see in broad daylight. Or did they actually video it in broad daylight? Oh yes, here we are, emerging from behind the moon in broad daylight. But you couldn't see the moon. It would be that on that side, you see, it would be that's emerging from the moon in broad daylight. Here we are. That's quite spectacular. You can see. So I managed to take a photo in broad daylight of Saturn emerging from behind the moon. I think in infrared or something. Anyway, so I'll put a link to the video description, or that's the same video. So I'll add the photobombing of the moon at some point. So, and then this shows us another similar idea. And this is a plane flying in front of the moon. So this time the plane's in front of the moon. There you are. And again, if you were on that plane, you wouldn't see the moon anywhere near you. It's just a line of sight effect. And it comes past again, I think. Maybe do they slow it? Does it come past again? No, it doesn't. Anyway, let's just go do it again then. You see, there we are, the plane flying past them in front of the moon. The plane was nowhere, it's just a line of sight thing. The plane was nowhere. Don't watch Corsica, or whatever they call themselves, and they're atrocious videos. Anyway, and then this is what Earth is like from Saturn. So this is looking at the other way around. If you want Saturn, that's how far away Earth would be, just tiny, tiny, tiny little. That's quite a magnified view. It's about how to observe the Great Conjunction. So then, this whole Mayan thing. So again, Paul Begley is not a Mayan. And Mayans are not Christian. The Mayans are polytheistic. They have dozens of gods. And the Christians knew nothing about the Mayans, and the Mayans knew nothing about the Christians. So why would a Christian pay any attention to a Mayan prophecy? It's not nothing to do. If there was a Mayan prophecy, then it's nothing to do with Christianity. I mean, why would you use a prophecy from a completely different religion if there was a Mayan prophecy? But there isn't. It's just made up. It's just New Age, made up woo-woo stuff again. There never was any Mayan prophecy. That whole 2012 film was just made up. It's not Mayan. And the Mayan people just got fed up of all they actually exist still today. The descendants of the Mayans in Guatemala. There's one of them in our group, in the Doomsday Debunk group, and he talks about his grandfather and his really, he had a peace of mind for these Westerns who keep their ideas. They messed up his religion and claimed all sorts of things. So it's basically other people who are not Mayan at all appropriating Mayan ideas for their own strange ends. And he claims that the Mayan calendar is the date is this December instead of 8 years ago. And that's not true. You can go and look up today's date in the Mayan calendar, and this is what the Mayans use. And so he's just wrong. Here we go. Today is 130818. So it's 8 years and one month and 8 days into the first month. It's the second month of the 8th year since the start of the 13th Bactun. That year is 360 days long. It's all very complicated, but we are well into the 14th Bactun. And they didn't have any idea, they didn't have even the notion that anything particular would happen. You see all these Bactuns, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, 8:30, 12:24, 1618, they would celebrate all those, 2012, 2407, 2801, and they go on and on and on. The first big tune in 4772. And there's nothing special about this one, it's just the 13th Bactun. And then next will be the 14th. And all they did was have a big celebration. So, just like we do for a new century or a new millennium. And this is today's date well, that's obviously was for the 4th of December. So if I bring it up now, we are in the Gregorian calendar, 7th of December. Then if you get that's the Mayan one. French one, they count a French calendar that counts from the Revolution. So 229 years. So for them, they will have their big celebration in 71 years from now. And Islamic, 1442, so for them it's 58 years from now. And the Hebrew one, 5781, so that will be 19 years from now. The Julian is the same as ours, 80 years from now. 1399, so the Persian calendar will have their 14th century a year from now. At the end of this, sometime next year, or whenever it is. Ethiopic, 2013, then their big day is 87 years from now. Or the Coptic, then their big day is 63 years from now, and so it goes on. And Chinese, I'm not sure how many there is in a cycle, but we're on year 37 of cycle 78. So, and Discordian, whichever that is, 3186. So their big year will be 14 years from now. So all these different dates, nothing happens. If you go into the new century, new millennium, in any of these different calendars, you have a big celebration, but these calendars are made up by humans. and there's nothing in the world that's going to happen on those particular years. And I actually said, have I got it here? I suggest yes, we could invent our own new calendar, and it'll be the Apollo 11 footprint calendar, and the start date of the first Apollo footprints, and that could be a calendar you would use maybe for space colonists living on the moon, and the first millennium would be 20th of July 2969. So this is the idea, because it's to show you what inventing a calendar is like. So you could just invent a new calendar, and all these calendars were started in a similar way to this, that they chose some date for some reason to start their calendar. Then 1,000 years from that will be the first millennium. Nothing particular is going to happen in the year on the 20th of July 2969. It'll just be the 1000th year of this calendar. There's no reason for anything to happen, because all that's happened is that you invented a calendar. And you could invent a calendar today and say, my birthday calendar, say, and count it from your birthday, and count the 1000. You could count the years from when you were born, for instance. So anyone can make up a calendar. And so false prophecies, here's my other one, false prophecies are as harmless as daisies. And basically that's what he's saying. He's basically saying to you that something very harmless, totally harmless, rather beautiful, and he's saying it's going to harm you. And it's a bit like someone saying, this daisy is going to kill you. And he just says it over and over and over again. And daisies are completely harmless, and so are false prophecies. False prophecies can't harm you in any way whatsoever. And there have been numerous false prophecies, there have been dozens every year. I don't know how many false prophecies, I've lost count of the number of false prophecies I've had to debunk just this year. You just lose count of them, they just go on and on and on and on and on. And we don't debunk all of them. We have, I think on the end of this video now, so we'll end it soon. But we have false prophecies, so many that you just can't keep track of them all. And we don't debunk them all. There's some professional false prophets. And I mean professional, because Paul Begley may well be learning, $1 million a year or something from his false prophecies, with all the different merchandise he sells and things. It's not impossible. People can earn very large amounts from YouTube, from popular YouTube videos, and with add-ons like merchandise and books and all the things he sells in connection with his video, which gets so many views. So he is a professional false prophet. He makes a living by prophesying the world will end. And there's several professional false prophets on YouTube. Some are just supplementing their income with a sideline false prophecy, and some of them are just cranks and they're not earning anything. Some don't have any ads on their videos, but quite a few are obviously making a living from it. I personally think that YouTube should stop all ads on false prophecy videos, and they should not permit any commercial tie-ins with false prophecy videos. That's my own personal view. If they did that, it would be interesting to see how many of these people kept on doing their videos. I rather suspect that Paul Begley would not be nearly so active on YouTube if his videos were completely demonetized. Some of them would keep going, the cranky ones who are sincere about what they're doing. I don't know if he's, it's hard to believe that he's really as sincere about it when he makes so many false prophecies, and he must know. I am absolutely sure Paul Begley will not cancel a dental appointment on the 22nd of December. He won't ring up his dentist and say, sorry, I can't come in on the 22nd to get my fillings done, because Jesus is going to appear in the sky and I'm going to be in heaven. He's not going to do that, or whatever his idea is about what would happen on that day. He's not going to do that. He couldn't live a normal life if he did that, since most weeks he would have to cancel whatever he was going to do on that week. So I'm sure he doesn't do that. And you should not do anything of any consequence with your life either. And just totally ignore all this stuff. It's just nonsense. It's absolute utter codswallop and rubbish. There's nothing here. It's just, it's nothing here. And so then I just want to bring up one more thing. No, I'll do that as a separate video about how I'll do a separate video about how you can get caught up into just being afraid through habit. And I would like to reassure you, if you've got very terrified of these things, then you may well have PTSD. If you have post-traumatic stress disorder, it's sometimes difficult with therapists to believe that you can have post-traumatic stress disorder from just reading a story, reading something on your mobile phone, without anything physically happening to you. It's all happening in your mind. But it can be very, very terrifying for some people. Just something we've read. Basically, nothing's happened in your physical life. Nothing has threatened you physically. You have not been caught up in a war. You haven't had you haven't had something terrible happen in your life. Well, if you have, it's different. It's nothing to do with this. And it's just something that you have read and something you have seen and that you've come to believe for whatever reason, and then your mind gets clouded by all the panic and then you believe it more. It's all happening, just nothing actually has happened. Nothing ever happened. So a lot of people are scared of 2012, but nothing happened then. And if you'd asked me, if you'd ask anyone who has a decent understanding of science back in 2012, they would have told you nothing's going to happen. There never was anything going to happen in 2012. If you had asked a Mayan in 2012, he also could have said nothing's going to happen. So there never was anything going to happen in 2012. It was most of that was just marketing, viral marketing for a movie. And they just made lots of stuff up in order to, and they made really millions and millions and millions of dollars for that movie. And it was just fiction. There was no truth to it at all. And there never was. So there's never been any risk for December 21 on any year. It is just movie ads. And so just remember, everything, if you've been scared by this, it is just, that's all it is. It's just things you've read that have affected your mind. Your mind is then panicked, you can't think clearly, you get more and more panicked, you read things, you get more panicked, and your mind is not working, and your mind is just not working right. It's some instinctive thing. It's working. If what you read was in fact a saber-toothed tiger that was outside your cave, and you just caught a glimpse of it, then your mind the way you behave is appropriate. But all you saw was some text on the page, or some video that people made, just flat images on your screen, nothing real. And there isn't any real danger there, and your body is responding to it as if it was a saber-toothed tiger or something really dangerous. And it's not, and it never was. And none of this ever was any danger in any way whatsoever. There's never been any danger from any of this. It's just been these ideas that would confuse your mind. So, anyway, I hope that helps some of you to be a little bit calmer about all this. Nothing's going to happen, and if you can make the step of just being able to see before the date. So a lot of people, and they're still a little bit scared until the date passes, and it's only when the actual day of the 21st of December that they really begin to realise for sure that nothing's going to happen. And then as the day progresses, they realise, no, nothing's going to happen, it was all just smoke and mirrors, it's nothing at all. And then it's a great feeling of relief. and then they forget about all that, and then they get the next false prophecy, and then they start panicking again. It's really will help a lot if you can manage to, this time, see it in advance, and realise before the date comes that nothing would happen. If you can be already relaxed and calm before the date happens, then you've made a lot of progress. And maybe then, the next time around, you'll be less scared by it. And if you can't do that, at least try to remember how scared you are just now. And then you try to remember how you were so scared for so long, and then nothing happened. And then think back in your life. A lot of people I help have been through fears like this over and over and over again, and yet they never seem to learn from it. So that's the ones who are worst affected. So they're absolutely terrified, then nothing happens, and they have this great relief, and then another date comes along, and then they're absolutely terrified for another few weeks, and then nothing happens, great relief. Another date comes along, and they're terrified again, and then nothing happens, and then they just have these cycles. It's almost like manic depressive, where you get more and more depressed and upset and scared and suicidal until the date that arrives. Then once it's over, completely relieved and great feeling of release, and then you get another date. And so the thing is to try and get out of these cycles and just realise that nothing ever happens, and that these dates, they're just false prophecies, and they're completely harmless. As I said, false prophecies are as harmless as daisies. So I'll leave that there, and I hope that some of the people I help can gradually come to realise this, and gradually just get completely out of the false prophecy trap. And then, so I'm going to upload another video. I'll do another video while this one is uploading about the false prophecy trap, and about how your fear affects your mind, and how being scared doesn't mean there's anything really to be scared of. So I hope that helps as well.